Not long after the Attorney General's fiery hearing on Capitol Hill, where we heard Pam Bondi defend her department's handling of the Jeffrey Epstein files, I interviewed 6 survivors of Epstein's abuse and 2 family members who tell me they feel that the Justice Department is not taking accountability. We've got that conversation here on our NBC News Now special coverage. Thank you all so much for being here. I know you literally have just come over off of Capitol Hill, where the Attorney General had appeared for that hearing in front of the House Judiciary Committee. I want to do just a couple of show of hands moments on how you feel about that, and then I want to talk about your reaction to everything we heard today. So with the show of hands, can you show me your hands if you were satisfied with what you heard from the Attorney General today? Nobody. Show of hands if you are frustrated with what you heard.
Very much so.
Very much so. Teresa, tell me more about that.
Well, going into this morning, and much of this process, I have this perspective that you need to give people the opportunity to do what they say they're going to do, to fulfill their word, put their money where their mouth is, so to speak. And we have yet again seen that go the complete opposite direction of there's no integrity. There was no integrity in that room today, it seemed like, as far when it came to Epstein and Maxwell. You know, there was a lot of expression of other good outcomes on things, and I can agree with a lot of what was said. And there was nothing that gave us any bit of hope of any kind of integrity and doing the right thing when it comes to Epstein, Maxwell, accountability, further investigation, which she claimed was happening. And we're going to be waiting to see the outcome of that and see if that's an accurate, legitimate statement.
Danny, I see you nodding and shaking your head.
I think there was such a lack of empathy today. There was such a lack of, honestly, humanity today. Something that, you know, I think all of us felt a little devastated about was that she had 3 opportunities to address survivors. We stood up, and all she had to do was turn around, and she could not even turn around and face us. For so many years, I can't speak for everybody, but for me, I felt like such a ghost walking through Epstein's mansion. I felt like there were so many people who saw me. There were so many people who should have spoken up. And instead, I felt like I was less than nothing. And now to not have AG Bondi turn around and acknowledge us, it is the exact same type of victimization. It's horrible.
Charlene, what did you think of that moment when you all were standing there and she was asked by one of the members of Congress to turn around and address you?
I felt really degraded. I felt that she's not taking at all any accountability. She's not following any kind of transparency. And honestly, the thought that I have is birds of a feather flock together. So I feel like the way that she handled today is often the way that our president or other people have treated us that are really high up. And I felt like she was treating us just like everybody else has in the justice system and beyond.
I was looking at you all. The cameras there had shown a view of you in that moment, on your feet, in front of this hearing room, in front of all of these cameras. And I wonder, Jess, Liz, all of you, if you can take me, what was going in your mind? What was happening in your mind? What were you thinking as that moment was happening?
So one of the things I was thinking in that moment is that it is such a simple act to turn around and say, I apologize for the terrible job our DOJ did in releasing, that is something that is completely inappropriate, to take responsibility for that, for the damage they did to us, not to state it as, yes, we understand damage was done. No, to us. It was such a simple thing. And it's something we teach children, to take accountability, to recognize when you've made a mistake and you just apologize for it. So there wasn't even an adult in the room that could apologize for the damage done to children and girls.
In her opening remarks, the Attorney General said, I am deeply sorry for what any victim has been through, especially as a result of that monster.
Of that monster. But not. So there's the crimes of Jeffrey Epstein, and then there's the crimes of the cover-up. And she's part of that continuing cover-up. So she didn't apologize for that.
But when she said that monster, she said it as if he acted alone.
Yes.
And Epstein was absolutely a monster. but he didn't act alone. And I think that we now have more evidence of that from what we've seen in the files. And what is really difficult for me to wrap my head around is I met Epstein and Maxwell when I was 21. I'm almost 53 now. And I was just raised differently. I was raised to respect our government. I was raised to be able to speak to people of different political parties. And maybe I don't always agree with them, but their insights help me shape my opinions. And I just don't see that happening. And that's what I grew up in. That's the America that I grew up in. And for us to now feel like the Department of Justice, which is in charge of seeking justice for all Americans who are victims of crime, they've just completely let us down. And so to hear her say, if you have been a victim of crime, we want you to call the FBI. I called the FBI. I called the FBI, and in the release of files, my intake report was released twice, once with part of my address, and once where my name was unredacted several times, including in a sentence that said, Stein was a victim of Epstein and Maxwell in the mid-90s. So, I find it really difficult to have any faith when we are constantly, being manipulated and downplayed by our government. We've heard several times our government say, we're moving on from this, and that just enrages me.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
This has been 3 decades of my life. We'd all love to move on with this, but how do you move on if you don't have justice? Yeah. And the Department of Justice's job is to seek justice. And they, for some reason, don't feel like they have to. And that's just incomprehensible.
You and I have talked before. I see a lot of emotion in your face.
Yeah.
This is all coming back up again for you.
Survivors of sexual assault, we are chastised so frequently. Why didn't you tell? Why didn't you fight back? All of these questions. And here we're seeing survivors have been telling, and they have been speaking out, starting 3 decades ago when Maria Farmer first reported this crime to the FBI. And over and over and over and over again, different branches of our Justice Department and, law enforcement that should have protected us haven't. It's like this massive institutional failure that we don't want to address. Yeah. And it's not just us anymore. It's not just about the Epstein case. It's about survivors everywhere. They're watching us, victims of crime everywhere. Yeah. This is something that people already don't talk about, and that's why it persists. And so now we're going to expect victims who are watching us be treated this way. We're going to expect them to talk about what's happened to them. That's hard to ask. Yeah. But we have a chance to change the conversation and change the narrative and say, you know what, these things happen because we don't talk about them. And that's why we need to, no matter how hard it is, we need to sit with how uncomfortable this is as a nation. Yes. Because it's the only way to get past it.
Yes. Maria, did you feel that discomfort in the room today?
I got to be honest with you. It was definitely a lot of discomfort, but I think we were, I don't know if I should say, I was a little embarrassed to see that she couldn't say sorry to us. Because she sat there in the beginning, she said sorry for what Jeffrey Epstein did to us, but yet she couldn't apologize what she did to us, what her department did to us, right? It's like you had one job, was to redact our names, to respect our privacy, but yet you carefully took the time to redact all these powerful, rich men. So, it's like, is it your department that can't keep up with, are you guys being sloppy? What's going on here? It's what we wonder every day. Where did it go wrong? And then I think we all realize now, oh, you guys really wanted to silence us. And you thought that you could scare us by putting our names out there. And to be honest with you, we've been through worse. This is nothing for us. If anything, this encourages us to speak more and not to be silenced. So we like to set the record here. If there are more files to be released, which we hope that these files that are released, they need to be, the men that are, the perpetrators that we did know about and that are out there now, they need to be investigated, and we cannot fail to do that as as the United States of America. We have other countries that are taking action in this, and we are doing absolutely nothing, and it is infuriating.
I want to come back to this. Oh, go ahead, Danny.
I do want to say something she did not say much today. I mean, she really evaded every question. She knew how to evade and was just using statistics. I mean, any game that she could play, she was playing. But the one thing that she did say is that there are investigations.
Well, so that's what I want to get into, because some of these prominent individuals, the ones that have been out there, officials have not publicly accused them of wrongdoing related to Epstein, but the Attorney General did say today, when pressed about the potential for new prosecutions, she says there are pending investigations.
Who, what, where, why, when. We don't have any information, and I would think that they would come to us to get that information.
Yeah, we still haven't talked yet. We haven't even.
Nobody's talked to the media.
Yeah, nobody's talked to any of us.
Show of hands, has anybody had any communication with the DOJ over the course of the last, let's say, 6 months? Do you want to have that communication?
Yes. We've all asked for it.
Does it mean we feel safe?
Yeah.
Does it mean that we think she's going to listen? No. But we deserve the chance as citizens of this country.
She also said, she was talking about anybody can go to the FBI. Any survivor right now can go to the FBI. And then we saw 302s that are full pages of black that even our congressional leaders can't get access to. So we've gone to the FBI. We've done the legwork. We've done everything we know how to do. And then to gaslight the American people and stand up there and say, well, they need to come over. They need to come talk to us. It's like, I don't know what else we have to do. We're here at the hearing. Like, we are doing everything we possibly can. So please tell us what else we need to do.
Somebody who I imagine all of you are thinking about, and I'm sure nobody more than the two of you, is Virginia Roberts Giuffre, who has been, in all of our conversations, many of our conversations, the person who you all have said brought together the people she called her survivor sisters. And I wonder, Skye and Amanda, how did you think of Virginia today? In that room, sitting there, I was watching both of you during some of these interactions with the Attorney General. Tell me what was going through your mind.
I was infuriated for her. How much more of a cost do survivors need to pay? Virginia paid the ultimate price for her trauma and the consistent failure of every single system she's been a part of, even in the one in Australia. She was failed over and over and over again. And she'd proven herself in court to be a truth teller. And when that congressman put up a picture of former Prince Andrew, and Pam Bondi refused to acknowledge, and that was the thing about it, every time there was a question about Jeffrey Epstein, Ghislaine Maxwell, our perpetrators, the contempt you almost see rise in her body, her whole face. I mean, I purposefully turned my body that way and stared at her to see, like, will you turn around and in one moment acknowledge and look at us, okay? Because Virginia was trashed for her allegations. I mean, ripped apart for years. She was a lone survivor. She kept pushing and kept pushing. And in those files, Ghislaine Maxwell gave her her own vindication. Yep. We know Virginia named over 40 names in sealed depositions and open depositions. We know a minimum she has named. And yet we still refuse to see them acknowledge or investigate any of those people. And Virginia has proven herself in court over and over and over again. And to sit there again and have this contempt for the questions when the Congress people, I said in my speech today, we're not here for theatrics. And she's like, oh, the theater. And I'm like, yes, you're the main character in this.
The circus act.
Yes.
Yeah. She was a comedian
Really
today.
well said.
Yes.
Everyone was laughing at her.
It was all strategic deflection all day long.
One of the things that she said in response to some of these questions was, and I'm paraphrasing here, but she said, why didn't you ask this of Merrick Garland, obviously the former Attorney General? She referenced other administrations past. How did you hear that?
Nobody's saying that the other administration handled it correctly. We're not standing here saying that this other administration, could have taken other actions. We're saying, yes, they could have, but this is in your hands now. This is in your hands, and you have an opportunity to step forward and do the right thing. And, it was just, God, just the continued, Danny, you put it perfectly, like the gaslighting. Anytime they would bring up anything relative to Epstein or Ghislaine Maxwell, she would say, well, because in your district, you don't want to talk about this person. It's like, you have survivors right behind you, She's like, any survivor can come forward and talk to us. Well, first, you don't really have an open door policy. Let's put it that way. Okay. And I think the second part to it is that they already have Virginia named more than 40 names. They're in those files. Why aren't we just going back to those? There's more than enough evidence to present forward. And now she's contradicting herself, specifically to Todd Blanche, because he's saying there's no investigations that are going to be happening. And now she's saying there's investigations. So which one is it? Are you doing investigations or are you not? Like, we need real answers. And I hope that I hope the American people can continue to stand behind us. I hope that they can demand justice, because realistically, this justice needs to happen. But if we need to go the social route too, we should be putting these names up. What boards are they on? What companies do they own? Like, we shouldn't be supporting any of those, and we should go after our social justice and continue to pursue this justice as well.
One of the things the Attorney General also said was that at one point, when asked about the redactions and acknowledging the errors that were made, both over-redacting and under-redacting, she said that the Department of Justice did the best they could, given the time constraints of the Epstein Transparency Act. Do you believe they did the best they could?
That was just another statement that said throughout the entire day. That was something that was said several times, I noticed, by several different congressmen and women, because they want us and the American public to feel that because they were rushed, because they had these time constraints, that this is then the reason why the redactions were not properly made when they should have been guaranteed to be made, and then protected the predators and perpetrators, which should never have happened. So that was just yet again another example of them trying to deflect their responsibility and almost trying to transfer all that shame and accountability to the American public, wanting to push the vote through, and even us survivors for wanting to see the Epstein Transparency Act signed.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's a form of victim blaming.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, there's a victim list that was released. It's called Victim List.
Client list.
Okay? So, and it had a list of victims.
It was shown, I think, a couple of times in the hearing.
One was redacted. That makes no sense. This is a list of victims. That's intentional.
One of the things I heard from several of you as the process of advocating for the Epstein Transparency Act was happening was that you felt like, given the bipartisan support from both sides of the aisle, that this was not a political issue.
Yeah.
And I wonder, sitting here today, after hearing what you heard from that hearing with the Attorney General, do you still think that? Do you still think this is not a political issue?
I think the GOP is scared. I think that there's some fear there, because we have amazing meetings with congressional leaders. We are in meetings all the time asking for their support, and we've actually some of the best meetings and really compassionate people. And then when it comes time
with
to
Republicans
show up,
and Democrats,
Republicans and Democrats, yes. But I want to speak to the Democrats to the Republicans just for a moment, because in those Republican meetings, we have these beautiful moments with them, and then they're not showing up to stand with us. Like this morning, we had the press conference, and Nancy Mace was the only Republican who showed up, and that was a real shame. We had a great meeting yesterday with the head of the Republican Women's Caucus, and she was incredible, and we had this beautiful conversation, and we really had hoped that she would invite more Republicans to stand with us, because again, I don't know how many times, I'm sure we're all so tired of saying that it's not political for us, right? It is a human issue. We are human beings. We just want to stand together. We just need to make this about survivors survivors as a whole. It's not about Epstein and Maxwell. It's about if you've ever had any sort of sexual assault or any sort of abuse, which 1 in 4 women, and we're not even talking about the men in this country, have experienced this. So it's a huge issue that's so much bigger than this. And all we're asking for is bipartisan support. We've seen people cross the aisle before. The Transparency Act was a beautiful display of that. There was this moment, and I'm sure you guys remember it, Marjorie Taylor Greene sitting with Melanie Stansbury, and they sat there together and watched those votes come in. And it was like, thank you. That is what we're talking about. 2 powerful women coming together and just being here to support other women. And we're just not seeing that.
Let me talk about somebody who currently is in prison, and that is Ghislaine Maxwell. And some of what we heard today and some of what we've heard this week from Ghislaine Maxwell. You know, Teresa, I'm struck. I know you said recently that she was in what you described as a prison spa, essentially, a reference to her transfer to a lower security prison camp.
Yes.
The Attorney General referred questions on that to the Bureau of Prisons. And I wonder, as you sit here today, knowing that Ghislaine Maxwell is where she is, what would you say to the Attorney General, to her staff at the Bureau of Prisons, if you could tell them something about that?
Well, that's just a soundbite to say, yet again, another deflection to the Bureau of Prisons, that they had no hand in having her transferred from Florida to from a maximum security to Texas.
So to you, this is an accountability issue. Is that what you're saying?
For her to say, yes, for her to say she didn't know is inherently false. I'm sorry. They know what's happening. They knew it was happening ahead of time. They didn't find out like we found out through the media. They knew it was probably planned for whatever reason, whatever they thought they were going to get out of Ghislaine Maxwell, a known perjurer. I'm not sure, but they knew ahead of time, and they sent her there. And it's one of, I think, the most abhorrent instances of this entire post-conviction of Maxwell case.
Yep. I call it the second sweetheart deal in this case. It's the second sweetheart deal because she is getting a little pat on the wrist and a puppy, right? And Attorney General Bondi would not answer the question, who signed off on this? Who is the person responsible? I have no idea.
Earlier this week on Capitol Hill, we saw Ghislaine Maxwell deposed virtually from prison, and she repeatedly invoked her Fifth Amendment right. Her lawyer said that she is, and I'm going to quote him here, that she is prepared to speak fully and honestly if President Donald Trump were to grant her clemency. Show of hands here. Do you think President Trump should grant her clemency in order for her to speak, as her lawyer says, fully and honestly to investigators? Would you like to see President Trump rule out the possibility of any clemency for Ghislaine Maxwell?
Yes.
Show of hands on that?
Yeah, sure. Yeah.
Tell me about that.
She used that as a bargaining tool. She's staying silent to try to get something. Again, she's trying to manipulate the system and put out things that gaslight us, manipulate us. It's atrocious. This woman is worse than Jeffrey Epstein. We trusted her because she's a woman. So it was easier for her to bring us into his orbit. And then she's also in the orbit. So to give her clemency is atrocious. It makes no sense. And she's just trying to bargain her way out.
Self-serving.
Jess, go ahead. Liz, I'm sorry. I'm looking.
It's okay. It's really concerning to me that we continue to try to give her a platform to come forward and talk about what happened when we have already seen her perjure herself in depositions, lie in her conversation with Todd Blanche, and yet, you know, there's this expectation that she's going to come forward and give all of the keys to what happened here. Why aren't they talking to the victims of the crimes, the people that experienced these crimes? Why are they not talking to us? We know what happened, and we're telling the truth. And it's really just infuriating to kind of have this constant back and forth with Maxwell. I think that we need to stop giving her a platform.
Ghislaine Maxwell is never going to say anything that holds any water, so we just need to let the air out and just let her go.
She needs to go back where she belongs.
Yes.
And what does it say about our justice system and our legal system that she even has an opportunity to even flirt with clemency or freedom? It is a stain globally, and it sets a standard. We are supposed to be setting the standard for justice and how we treat children and victims in our system. And should she be granted any more clemency and not put back where she belongs, it's a failure, and it is a stain on us. And everywhere in the world is looking at us to do the right thing here.
So what would your message be to the White House on this? Because to this point, that is on the table. That is not a possibility. The possibility of pardon that the president could give, that has not been ruled out.
Yeah. Put her back where she belongs and close the door.
Yes.
And
Close the door on her.
Put her back in maximum security, not
Give her more time.
Yeah.
Give her more time.
Take away the puppy.
and the cell phones.
One of the things that you reference, Amanda, and I'll ask you and Sky this too, the sort of international, the global spotlight that is on this. And we've seen, you look over in the UK, we've already seen multiple people in the British government resign, come under scrutiny for their relationships with Epstein. And I wonder what you make of the way that the landscape is here in the United States related to high-profile people and their ties to Jeffrey Epstein.
Yeah. I want to, just real quick, I want to reverse back for a second on Ghislaine, because Ghislaine is part of this international sex trafficking ring. Something that Virginia said, and it always sticks with me, is that Epstein was Pinocchio and she was Geppetto. She was feeding him, basically, and she was an active participant. She was often worse than Jeffrey Epstein. And the reason I say that is to go, and I'll go back to the UK here, is that they are taking more action there than we are here in the United States. To be quite honest with you, the king, I'd commend him. I truly do. I think it's very difficult. He's basically going up against his own brother. I mean that to say that these people, if they were able to commit the most heinous crime out there, what else could they have committed? Why aren't we following the money? Why aren't we taking more action? We should be opening the investigations, and we should be subpoenaing their flight records. They should be subpoenaing their bank account records and start combing through those. And let's see what's there, because I think if you follow the money trail, you're going to find some other things that they were much capable of if they were capable of doing these other things.
What are we doing as Americans? Because we need to take this a little bit more serious. Somebody has done this to a person who is no longer here with us, right? There is proof. And it only means what? He's going to wake up one day, and then I mean to this for all the perpetrators that have come out and, you know, and like, you know, Sky said, we need to follow the money. We need to get their bank accounts. We need to get their flight logs. Why? Because us and these other survivors that are Jane Does are not the only ones. There are many more out there that we do not know about. And I got to be honest with you, these perpetrators don't wake up one day and they're like, okay, well, I'm going to stop being, I'm going to stop liking children. I'm going to stop being a rapist. It does not work like that. It does not work like that. It's the same way when we talk about Ghislaine. When she walks away 20 years from now, if she's still alive, what do we think she's going to do? Become a teacher?
Yeah.
Maybe, you know what? Maybe her and Pam Bondi will be partners. No, it's like, guys, these people are not going to stop. We need to stop them. So I just wonder, will the DOJ or who will start the investigation? And like Sky said, we need to pull out these records and find out more.
I want to ask you, as we're getting close to the end of our time here together, about what's next. But before I do, I just want to go back as we talk about now former Prince Andrew. There was that now infamous photograph of Virginia that was decried as potentially doctored. Years ago, it was described by Ghislaine Maxwell herself as fake at one point. But now we've seen in this Epstein file release an email in which she appears to refer to this photograph as legitimate here. A photograph that I know, and we've talked about, tormented your family for some time.
what a day of vindication. I mean, I don't know how many times I have to say how much of a truth teller she's been, and the consistency in her story has never changed. And when you go through these files and you hear the testimony of Andrew, you hear the testimony of Ghislaine, the story is always changing. Oh, maybe it was a fake. Oh, I don't recall taking that photo or being there. And then Ghislaine verifies in the email, yeah, oh yes, I did in fact introduce her to Andrew. And so again, you're just seeing this same repetition, the lies, and the one person, and it always pulls me back to what she says, especially when it comes to Andrew, is he knows what happened, I know what happened, and only one of us is telling the truth here, and I know that's me. That is the kind of conviction that she powered through this with the truth and conviction in her story. Before we end this, I want to say, yesterday we got to announce Virginia's law. And it was a dream of hers to reform the statute of limitations. And we're here, we're seeing that. Less than a year of her passing. And I want to end that on a good note, because I think the American people need to see that with all this grief and all this pain, like, real change can happen. We have the power to do that. And so we're going to continuously fight, because Virginia deserves it. They deserve it. And every single survivor who has been silenced deserve it. So we can't wait to see Virginia's law pass.
Her dream was to eliminate the statute of limitations to affect real change on a global and on a national level. I mean, this was to protect her survivor sisters. This is to protect future survivors and our next generation. We get to go home to our daughters and our children and say, hey, we're fighting the bad guys. We're doing it and eliminating this. In some states, the statute of limitations is as little as 3 years. It takes survivors, it takes victims into their 30s and 40s, and when they are moms and they finally get this power to come forward so bravely, it takes a long time. And the statute of limitations needs to be completely eliminated to give survivors grace. And Virginia, that was her dream. And I truly hope that that can be, again, this isn't a political issue anymore. This is on a human level. I hope Republicans and Democrats and all alike, we will talk to you. We will come. Tell me the date, time, and I will be there. And we can have a conversation about this and why it's so important. Come see us face to face. This is something that we can do to set a new standard moving forward, so we can teach our generation and the next generation,
All of you have shown up. All of you have shown up again here today. And so as we close here, let me ask you this. Sitting in that room, being at that hearing, with a show of hands, do you trust the Department of Justice to pursue justice now for you? None of you.
I think they're going to have to learn what that is first.
That's right. Yeah, that's right.
So what do you want to see next?
Action.
Bring these men to justice.
I want to just see women be believed. You use that word torment, and I think about Virginia, but I think about Maria Farmer, and that, we have that 1996, the first half of the report. I don't know that anybody's found the second half of that report yet. And so we owe it to the survivors who came before us. We owe it to the girls and young folks in this country of the future. Changing statute is a huge leap forward, but also believing women first and foremost, or just believing anybody who is telling you that abuse has occurred, and giving people a safer space to come forward that is more trauma informed is so crucial here.
Yeah.
Thank you all so much for being with us. Thank you for sharing your perspective on everything that has unfolded over on Capitol Hill. And I know that this will not be the last time that we talk. Thank you all very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
It is a story, of course, we will continue to follow. Our thanks again to them, and our thanks to you, as always, for watching. That's a wrap for this hour. More coverage picks up right now.
We thank you for watching, and remember, stay updated on breaking news and top stories on the NBC News app, or watch live on our YouTube channel.